Analysis is the most important thing to know what exactly present in something. If you know what exactly present in something, you can also know how exactly utilize that thing. So today topic is ultimate analysis. This is the fifth video in Fierce. You can watch all my previous videos in my channel. The corresponding links are provided in the description. So what is the significance of analysis of coal? So if you analyze the coal, you came to know which is having exactly. So that means elemental analysis. What elements is there? If what the contents is there other than what we required, that means a good fuel should have carbon and hydrogen should have high percentage, remaining should be in low percentage. Then if you came to know what is exactly percentage, how much is there, then you can classify the coal whether it is good one or bad one, it has a high grade or low grade. If once you classify the coal, and you can also give the different applications for the different grades of coals, and also without involving combustion you can calculate the combustion values, and also by that you can send different coals to different purpose of applications like industrial applications, homemade applications. That's why there is a lot of significance for analysis of coal. Okay, so we already discussed about the proximate analysis. In this session, we are going to discuss about the ultimate analysis. In ultimate analysis, mainly we are going to do the elemental analysis of the coal sample. That means, so carbon percentage, hydrogen percentage, nitrogen percentage, sulfur, ash, oxygen percentage can be determined by using ultimate analysis. That's why it is called elemental analysis. So start with the carbon and hydrogen. So for example, so there is a sample is there, known weight of sample is given to you. So that sample definitely contains carbon and hydrogen. Why? Because every sample contains carbon and hydrogen, and most ofly, and some of these samples may also contain oxygen, sulfur and nitrogen. So definitely sample contains carbon and hydrogen. So this sample contains carbon and hydrogen. The sample is taken into closed vessel just like a bomb calorimeter. The sample having carbon and hydrogen. So now the sample is subjected to combustion process. Combustion process means you fill the oxygen gas here and give the ignition temperature. Now that sample involved in combustion. If sample involved in combustion, the sample contained carbon and hydrogen also involved in combustion. The combustion, carbon converting into CO2 gas, and hydrogen converting into water vapor. So here hydrogen turn into H2O and carbon converting into CO2 gas. Now this chamber is connected to two tubes. One is filled with the KOH sample, another is filled with the CaCl2 tube. Before combustion process, you can also able to measure the how much KOH tube weight is there and how much CaCl2 tube weight is there. So now you carried the combustion process. Now CO2 gas and H2O vapors are generated within the chamber. Now the generated CO2 gas is absorbed by the KOH tube. That KOH interact with the CO2 and it forms a K2CO3. So CO2 is interact with the KOH and forms K2CO3. Because of this reaction, the KOH tube weight is increased, right? In the same way, the water molecule or hydrogen atoms present in the sample interact with the O2 and produces water vapor. That water vapor is absorbed with the CaCl2 tube. Now CaCl2 tube weight also increased. So now after combustion process, you can measure how much KOH and CaCl2 tubes are gained respectively. Yes, why? Because they can be removed from the chamber. You can measure how much KOH tube is weight increased and how much CaCl2 tube weight is increased. Why KOH tube weight is increased? Because of CO2 gas. How this CO2 gas is generated? Because of coal. Coal contains carbon. That carbon first converted to CO2. That CO2 increases the weight of KOH tube. That's why by applying following formula, weight percentage of carbon percentage equal weight increased in KOH2 by initial sample weight. That means so W1 grams initial sample weight what we take in here, that is initial sample weight into 100. What is this term? 12 by 44. Here KOH2 weight is increased because of CO2, but we are going to determine weight percentage of carbon. So for example, if there is 44 grams of carbon dioxide is there, in that 12 grams of carbon is there. Why? Because 1 mole of carbon dioxide having 1 carbon. So 1 mole of carbon dioxide means 44 grams. 1 mole of carbon is equal to 12 grams. So that's why 12 by 44 we implemented here. Just like hydrogen gas, percentage of hydrogen is equal increasing weight of CaCl2 tube. Why? Because CaCl2 tube weight is gained because of water vapor. That's why we have to take CaCl2 tube weight gain. Okay, next initial sample weight into 2 by 18. Here also 18 grams of water or 1 mole of water having 2 hydrogen atoms. 2 hydrogen atom means 2 grams. 1 mole of water means 18 grams. That's why we need to keep here 2 by 18 into 100. This is the weight percent, with the percentage of hydrogen. Like that we can determine carbon percentage and hydrogen percentage. Next one is how to determine nitrogen percentage. This process also called Jaldal method. Why? Because this process generally start with the long necked flask which is called Jaldal flask. For example, just like a volumetric flask. So this is a Jaldal flask. In this sample we have to take. In this sample nitrogen is there. Now we are going to determine how much nitrogen is there. Right? First step is just add the H2SO4 in presence of K2SO4. When you add H2SO4 to the sample, so the sample is completely dissolved in the H2SO4, forms a clear solution. Of course, it is a black solution, but it produces a clear solution. Then you have to add a KOH solution to it and heat the solution. Then the nitrogen present in the sample interact with the KOH and forms ammonia gas. So ammonia is a base. Now, if you determine how much ammonia is liberated, then you can find how much nitrogen is there. Just like before, if you determine how much CO2 is there, you can determine how much C is there. If you able to determine how much H2O is there, you can also determine easily how much hydrogen percentage is. Same way, if you determine how much ammonia is there, you can easily tell how much nitrogen percentage in the sample. For that purpose, you need to add this ammonia into acid. Ammonia is a base. Now you are adding this ammonia to a acid. That acid having normality something. Some normality is there, N normality, and this volume also ZmL. Okay, ZmL of acid is there, and acid normality is N. To that acid you added the obtained ammonia gas. Okay, now ammonia gas interacted with that acid. Okay, so total so much acid is there, in that some acid is consumed by the ammonia. Okay, so here ZmL of acid is there, in that XmL is consumed by the ammonia. Still YmL is there, that is non-consumed acid. So that non-consumed acid still in the beaker, that can be determined by the known base. Another base is there, by that by doing the back titration you can determine how much non-consumed acid is there. If once you know the non-consumed acid, you can easily determine the how much consumed acid. If once you know the consumed value, you can determine how much ammonia is there by simple dilution law. V1N1 is equal to V2N2. So by this process, you are finally able to determine how much acid is consumed with ammonia. So that is measured here, volume of acid consumed into normality of that acid, this acid normality. Okay, by volume of initial sample, sorry, weight of initial sample into 1.4. Remember here there is no into 100. So 14 is the atomic weight of nitrogen. So here we are taking normality for 1000 ml. So when you add by 1000, So 100 and 14 become as 1.4, and 100 both are cancelled together. This is the simplified formula for nitrogen percentage. Okay, like that we can determine the nitrogen percentage. Next one is simple process sulfur determination. So when sample contains sulfur, when you involve in combustion, the sample produces heat energy. Along with that heat, it produces combustible gases like CO2, H2O vapor. If sample having sulfur, it also produces sulfur dioxide or sulfur trioxide. This all will be escape into atmosphere. If one sulfur enter into the atmosphere, you are unable to determine the sulfur percentage. For this purpose, you need to keep sulfur within the crucible. For that purpose, you need to add barium chloride. When you add barium chloride to sample and it involved in combustion, it produces sulfur sulfates, and it is interact with the barium salt and it produces the barium sulfide. Barium sulfide is a solid. It cannot be evaporated. It's still within the crucible along with the ash. When you wash it, ash will be washed out. Barium sulfide still there. It is a solid. You can measure the how much weight of barium sulfide is. So by taking the following formula, sulfur percentage is equal, weight of barium sulfide is obtained by initial sample weight and into 100 into 32 by 233. Again, here weight of barium sulfide, you are not going to determine the percentage of barium sulfide, you are going to determine the sulfur percentage. That's why 233 grams of barium sulfide contains 32 grams of sulfur. So like that you can determine the sulfur percentage. So once you can determine the ash percentage just like proximate analysis. This is already explained in the previous video, fuel 4 video, you can watch in my YouTube channel. So proximate analysis easily done to determine the ash percentage. Once you determine the carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, sulfur, ash, you can easily determine oxygen percentage by adding all above percentages and by removing with 100. Okay, so 100 minus percentage of carbon plus hydrogen plus sulfur plus nitrogen plus ash will give the percentage of oxygen. Like that you can determine the oxygen percentage. So this is the ultimate analysis. By this analysis you can determine carbon percentage, hydrogen percentage, nitrogen percentage, sulfur percentage, and ash can be determined just like proximate analysis. If once you get all these five, you can easily determine the oxygen percentage. So this is the ultimate analysis. Once you know the elemental composition, by implementing this elemental composition in DeLong formula, DeLong formula is about elemental composition. It will give the HCV value of fuel. So without involved in combustion, you can tell, if you know the elemental analysis, you can tell the HCV value of that fuel, that coal sample. This is the application of ultimate analysis. And thank you for watching this video. Thank you very much.